My wife thinks she's going to build a billion-dollar company, Ryan Walker said with a laugh, lifting his glass slightly as if he had just delivered the best joke of the night, and the living room filled with polite laughter that grew louder as people realized he meant it. It was a small gathering in their Chicago apartment, the kind of evening where friends crowded around the kitchen island, red plastic cups sweating in their hands, the scent of takeout pizza and garlic bread still hanging in the air. Olivia Bennett stood near the end of the counter, holding a thin folder against her chest. Inside it was the plan she had spent the last 4 months building after work, page after page of research, numbers, projections, and a dream that had quietly taken shape during countless late nights at the dining table. She had waited for the right moment to share it, thinking maybe tonight, surrounded by people who knew them both, Ryan might at least listen. Instead he flipped through the first few pages and chuckled before even reaching the middle. "Come on," he said, glancing at their friends like he was letting them in on something obvious. "She wants to start a fintech company. $1 billion one." Someone whistled softly, someone else laughed in surprise, and the moment rolled forward before Olivia could catch it. Ryan leaned back against the counter, shaking his head with the relaxed confidence of someone certain he was being reasonable. "Liv, you work 40 hours a week already. Startups burn through cash like gasoline. You know how many fail?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Almost all of them." The room settled into that awkward space between humor and discomfort, where people didn't quite know whether to keep laughing or pretend nothing had happened. Olivia felt the folder grow heavier in her hands. She noticed small things in the silence. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint traffic outside drifting through the half-open window, the clink of ice shifting inside someone's glass. Ryan flipped the folder closed and set it down on the counter like it was a magazine he had already finished skimming. "It's a nice idea," he added, though his tone suggested it belonged in the same category as lottery tickets or childhood fantasies. But billion-dollar companies aren't built on wishful thinking. A few of their friends exchanged quick looks. Someone changed the subject, asking about a baseball game on TV last weekend, and the conversation slowly moved on like a current pulling everyone away from the moment. But Olivia didn't move. She watched Ryan laugh with their friends, completely at ease, completely certain the discussion was over. Her fingers rested lightly on the folder again, feeling the edges of the pages she had written line by line while the rest of the apartment slept. She remembered the nights she stayed up after midnight reading about payment systems and financial software, the way her eyes burned from staring at spreadsheets, the quiet excitement she felt each time a new idea connected with the last one. For a moment she wondered if Ryan might glance back at her, maybe soften the joke with a quick smile that said he hadn't meant it the way it sounded. He never did. The laughter in the room faded into ordinary conversation, but the echo of his words stayed where it had landed. "My wife thinks she's going to build $1 billion company." Olivia inhaled slowly and picked up the folder from the counter. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She simply held the plan close again, and looked once more at the crowded apartment that suddenly felt smaller than it had an hour ago. In that quiet second, while everyone else talked about sports and weekend plans, a thought settled in her mind with surprising clarity. One day, the same people who laughed tonight might hear that name, Olivia Bennett, and realize the joke had never been hers. 2 months after that night, the apartment felt quieter even when the television was on. The laughter from the party had faded into memory, but something else had taken its place. A subtle distance that settled between Olivia Bennett and Ryan Walker like an invisible wall neither of them talked about. Mornings moved in routine patterns. Ryan left early for the office with a travel mug of coffee in his hand, and Olivia remained at the small dining table with her laptop open, scanning through financial articles before heading to her own job. The folder with her business plan stayed beside the computer, the edges slowly bending from being opened and closed so many times. At first Ryan occasionally made small comments that sounded like jokes but carried the same quiet disbelief. He would glance at the screen and say something like, "Still working on that $1 billion idea?" followed by a smile that made it clear he believed he was being practical. Olivia usually answered with a calm nod and returned to her notes. She stopped trying to explain the details of digital payment systems and cross-border transactions because every explanation seemed to land in the same place. Ryan believed she was chasing something unrealistic, and the conversation always ended there. Weeks passed and Olivia noticed the changes not in loud arguments, but in the small moments that built the rhythm of their life. Ryan spent more evenings out with colleagues, saying networking dinners were important for his career. Olivia stayed home more often, reading market reports, learning new software tools, and slowly reshaping the idea that had once lived only inside that thin folder. Some nights the apartment windows reflected the city lights while she worked long after midnight. Chicago traffic moved like a ribbon of red and white headlights below, and the glow from her laptop illuminated the pages of calculations she rewrote again and again. She began to see possibilities she had not seen before, patterns in the way small businesses struggled with payment systems, the delays, the fees, the outdated infrastructure. The idea was no longer just a dream. It was becoming a structure she could almost see forming piece by piece. Ryan noticed the late nights but rarely asked about them. When he did, his tone carried a gentle certainty that the effort would eventually fade away. "You work too hard for something that might never happen," he told her one evening while loosening his tie in the hallway mirror. Olivia looked up from her laptop and studied his reflection for a moment. She realized something important in that quiet second. Ryan was not cruel, and he was not intentionally trying to hurt her. He simply could not imagine a future where her idea succeeded. To him, the limits of the world were clear and predictable, and her ambition sat outside those lines. The understanding settled over her like calm water. Instead of feeling discouraged, she felt an unexpected kind of clarity. She no longer needed Ryan to believe in the plan. She only needed time. A few weeks later, Ryan sat across from her at the kitchen table with an expression that looked both determined and strangely relieved. He spoke carefully, explaining that their goals were different now and that perhaps they had grown in separate directions. The conversation remained polite, almost quiet, but every sentence carried the same conclusion. By the end of the evening, the future they had once planned together no longer existed. When Ryan left the apartment later that night, Olivia stood by the window watching the taillights of his car disappear into the moving stream of traffic. The city continued humming the way it always did, indifferent to the turning points in people's lives. She walked back to the dining table, opened her laptop and placed the worn folder beside it. The room was silent except for the steady tapping of keys as she began rewriting the plan again, not as a possibility anymore but as the beginning of something she intended to build. The first winter after Ryan Walker left felt longer than any season Olivia Bennett could remember. Chicago winds pushed against the windows of her small apartment, while the city sidewalks filled with people rushing home before the temperature dropped below freezing. Inside the apartment, the heat clicked on and off with a quiet metallic sound, and the soft glow from Olivia's laptop became the brightest light in the room most nights. The dining table that once held casual dinners now looked more like a workspace. Pages of notes, financial models, and diagrams spread across its surface, each one marking another step in the idea she refused to abandon. During the day, Olivia continued working at her regular job, answering emails and attending meetings like any other employee in the office. But the real work began after sunset. She studied payment systems used by small businesses across the country, comparing transaction delays, hidden processing fees, and the complicated infrastructure that most owners barely understood. The more she researched, the clearer the opportunity became. Thousands of businesses needed something simpler, faster, and more transparent. Olivia began sketching out the framework of a digital platform that could move money between businesses with fewer steps and fewer costs. At first, the concept lived only inside spreadsheets and rough outlines, but each week the details sharpened. She learned basic programming tools through online courses late at night, watching tutorial videos while snow drifted past the window outside. Sometimes exhaustion crept in and she leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes for a few seconds, while the quiet apartment reminded her how different life looked now. Yet even in those moments she felt something stronger than doubt. She felt momentum. A few months later, the table was replaced by a small desk and a second monitor she bought with careful savings. The screen filled with lines of early code and prototype designs for a payment dashboard. Olivia tested the system with simulated transactions, adjusting numbers and rewriting sections when errors appeared. The process was slow and often frustrating, but every working feature felt like a small victory no one else could see. Spring arrived, and the snow melted into long gray mornings that carried the smell of rain through the open window. Olivia started attending small networking events for technology founders, usually held in modest co-working spaces with folding chairs and paper coffee cups. She listened more than she spoke, absorbing conversations about venture funding, software launches, and the unpredictable road of startups. Most people there had teams or investors already while she was still building alone, but the experience confirmed something important. Her idea belonged in that room. One evening she stayed late after an event, standing near the window while downtown lights reflected off the glass towers across the street. The city stretched in every direction, busy and restless, full of companies that had once been nothing more than someone's quiet determination. Olivia thought about the night Ryan laughed at the idea of a billion-dollar company, and felt an unexpected calm instead of resentment. That memory had become fuel rather than pain. She returned home and opened her laptop again, reviewing the latest version of the platform she had been shaping for months. The code ran smoothly through a series of test transactions, numbers flowing across the screen exactly the way she had imagined during those long winter nights. Olivia watched the results for a moment, then saved the project under a new name she had finally chosen for the company. It was the first time the idea looked less like a personal experiment and more like the beginning of something real. By the time summer arrived in Chicago, Olivia Bennett had built more than a prototype. The platform on her laptop had slowly evolved into a functioning system capable of moving simulated payments between accounts in seconds, displaying clear records, and reducing the complicated steps that had frustrated small business owners. For years, the first time the entire process completed without an error message, Olivia leaned back in her chair and stared at the screen while the evening sunlight stretched across the floor of her apartment. It was a quiet victory, the kind no crowd applauded, but it felt larger than anything she had achieved before. That night she ordered a simple takeout dinner, and continued refining the system, while the city outside buzzed with warm weather energy. Cars moved slowly through traffic below. Music drifted from open restaurant doors down the street, and for the first time the long months of work began to feel like the foundation of a real company rather than a personal project. The next step required courage she had never tested before. Olivia began reaching out to small business owners she had met during networking events earlier in the year. She explained that she was building a new digital payment platform, designed to reduce processing delays and unnecessary fees. Most people were skeptical at first. Some politely declined, while others listened but asked careful questions about security and reliability. Olivia answered every question patiently, showing them demonstrations on her laptop and explaining exactly how the system worked. After several weeks, a local coffee shop owner named Daniel Carter agreed to try a limited test with a small number of transactions between suppliers. The first live payment moved through the system on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Olivia watched the confirmation notification appear on the screen, and felt her heart racing faster than she expected. The transfer completed in seconds, faster than the traditional systems Daniel had been using for years. He looked at the screen then back at Olivia and smiled with genuine surprise. Word traveled slowly at first but steadily. Daniel mentioned the system to a bakery owner he knew, and the bakery owner introduced Olivia to a small catering company that often struggled with delayed payments from corporate clients. Each new user revealed improvements that could be made, and Olivia spent long nights updating the platform, refining features, and strengthening security. What began with a single coffee shop gradually expanded into a network of small businesses, using the system for daily transactions. Autumn returned to Chicago, bringing cool air and bright orange leaves across the city parks. Olivia no longer worked from the dining table alone. She had rented a small workspace inside a shared technology office building downtown, where whiteboards covered with diagrams filled one wall and two part-time developers helped maintain the growing platform. The company name she had once typed quietly into her laptop now appeared printed on a simple sign near the office door. Some evenings Olivia stood near the window overlooking the busy streets below, and thought about how different her life looked compared to the moment Ryan Walker had walked out of the apartment months earlier. At the time she had only an idea and determination. Now she had a product, early clients, and a small but growing team. The dream that once sounded impossible during that dinner party conversation was slowly becoming something visible in the real world, piece by careful piece. The following year moved faster than Olivia Bennett expected. What began with a few small businesses testing her payment platform slowly expanded into something larger, as more owners shared their experiences with friends and suppliers. The system proved reliable, and the simplicity that Olivia had designed into every feature became its greatest strength. Transactions that once required complicated approval chains now completed in seconds, and every transfer appeared in a clear dashboard that even first-time users understood immediately. Inside the small downtown office, the whiteboard walls filled with new ideas almost every week. Olivia and the two developers who had joined her team reviewed feedback from clients and continued refining the software. They added reporting tools for business owners, improved security layers, and built mobile access so payments could be approved from anywhere. The atmosphere inside the office carried a quiet energy that came from people building something they believed in. Coffee cups lined the desks during long afternoons, and the sound of keyboards tapping steadily often continued well past sunset. As the platform grew, Olivia began speaking with regional investors who were interested in financial technology startups. The first meetings felt intimidating at first, especially when she sat across polished conference tables from executives who had funded dozens of companies before. Yet each conversation became easier once she demonstrated how the platform worked, and how quickly small businesses were adopting it. The data spoke clearly. Revenue from transaction processing increased month after month, and the number of active users climbed steadily across several states. Eventually, one investment firm offered funding that allowed Olivia to expand the team, hire engineers, and move the company into a larger office space with conference rooms and rows of workstations. The company that once lived inside a single laptop now employed dozens of people working together to improve the system every day. With greater resources came greater responsibility. Olivia spent much of her time guiding strategy, reviewing product updates, and meeting partners who wanted to integrate the platform into their own services. News about the company began appearing in technology blogs and financial publications that highlighted its rapid growth. One article described the platform as a rising force in modern payment infrastructure for small businesses across the United States. On a cool evening in early autumn, Olivia stood near the window of the new office overlooking the Chicago skyline. The lights from hundreds of buildings stretched across the horizon, while traffic flowed steadily through the streets below. The office behind her buzzed with quiet conversations as engineers tested new features, and analysts reviewed transaction data from thousands of businesses now using the system every day. In that moment, Olivia realized how far the journey had carried her. Only a few years earlier she had worked alone at a small dining table with a single idea and a folder filled with notes. Now the company she built processed millions of dollars in payments daily, and continued growing faster than she had imagined during those long nights of early work. She closed her laptop for the evening and glanced at the company logo printed on the glass wall near the entrance. It represented more than success. It represented every moment when doubt could have ended the story, but determination quietly kept it moving forward. The momentum surrounding Olivia Bennett's company continued building as winter approached Chicago once again. But this winter felt completely different from the one she remembered years earlier. Back then she had been sitting alone beside a small apartment window with nothing more than determination and a laptop glowing late into the night. Now the office floor buzzed with quiet activity every morning as teams arrived carrying coffee and laptops, discussing updates, partnerships, and the steady expansion of the payment platform that had begun as a single idea. The system now supported thousands of businesses across multiple states, processing transactions that moved through the network every second of the workday. Large monitors in the operations room displayed real-time data streams that showed payments traveling from one business to another with the speed and clarity Olivia had imagined during those early design sketches. Each number on those screens represented someone trusting the platform with their daily operations. That responsibility guided every decision she made as the founder and chief executive. Investors who had once asked careful questions now spoke with confidence about the company's future. During board meetings they discussed growth strategies, new technology integrations, and potential partnerships with national financial institutions. The platform's reputation for reliability and transparency had become its greatest advantage in a market filled with complicated systems that many business owners still struggled to understand. One afternoon Olivia attended a financial technology conference held in a large convention center near Lake Michigan. The event gathered founders, investors, and executives from across the country who were shaping the future of digital finance. When Olivia stepped onto the stage to speak about building a payment system designed specifically for small businesses, She paused for a moment as the audience settled into their seats. Looking out across the room, she realized that the quiet determination that once carried her through long nights had now evolved into something larger than personal ambition. Her work had become part of a broader movement to simplify financial tools for millions of entrepreneurs who simply wanted their businesses to run smoothly. After the presentation, many attendees approached her with questions, partnership ideas, and invitations to future collaborations. As the evening ended, Olivia stepped outside the convention center and felt the cool wind moving across the lake. The skyline lights reflected across the water while traffic flowed steadily through the streets nearby. She thought briefly about the path that had led to this moment, about the dining table that once served as her office, the long nights studying payment infrastructure, and the early days when even a single successful transaction felt like a milestone. None of those moments had guaranteed success. They had simply been steps forward taken with patience and belief in the possibility of something better. Back at the company headquarters later that week, Olivia walked through the main workspace where engineers, analysts, and support teams focused on their tasks with quiet concentration. The company logo shone softly on the wall near the entrance, a reminder of how far the journey had come. The platform was now valued by investors at a level that placed it among the most promising financial technology companies in the country. Yet for Olivia, the meaning behind that success remained simple. It was proof that the dream she once described during a casual dinner conversation had never been unrealistic. It had simply needed time, courage, and the willingness to keep building even when no one else could yet see what it would become. Several months after the conference by Lake Michigan, Olivia Bennett noticed that the company she had once built step by step was now moving at a pace that no single person could fully control anymore. What began as a small platform designed for local businesses had expanded into a financial network connecting companies across the country. Every morning the operations dashboard displayed millions of dollars moving through the system, each transaction flowing through the infrastructure she had once mapped out on a simple whiteboard. The office had grown as well. Entire teams now focused on security, partnerships, customer support, and new technology development. Hallways that had once felt quiet were now filled with conversations about new integrations, expansion strategies, and ways to make the platform even more reliable for the businesses that depended on it every day. Despite the growth, Olivia maintained a habit that had followed her since the earliest days of the company. She arrived at the office earlier than most of the team, usually just after sunrise when the city was still stretching into the morning. From her office window she could watch the first waves of commuters moving through downtown Chicago, while the soft light reflected off the glass towers around the building. Those quiet moments reminded her of the long nights years earlier when the entire project had existed only inside her laptop and imagination. One afternoon the leadership team gathered in the main conference room for an announcement from the company's financial advisors. Large screens displayed charts showing growth trends, transaction volume, and user adoption across different regions of the country. The numbers had reached a level that attracted attention from major financial institutions and international investors. After months of evaluation, the company's latest valuation crossed a milestone that once sounded almost impossible when Olivia had first described her vision to friends years earlier. The platform was now valued in the billions of dollars. The room filled with applause and quiet excitement as team members realized the scale of what they had built together. Olivia listened to the conversation around the table but remained calm, absorbing the moment rather than celebrating it loudly. For her, the number itself was not the most important part. What mattered was the journey that had led there, every challenge that had forced her to keep improving the idea until it worked in the real world. Later that evening she left the office and walked along the Chicago River, while the city lights reflected across the water. The air carried the familiar cool breeze that always drifted through the downtown streets after sunset. She paused on a bridge and looked across the skyline, remembering the apartment where everything had started, the dining table covered with notes, and the quiet determination that had carried her forward when success still seemed distant. In that moment Olivia realized that the dream she once defended during a casual dinner conversation had grown into something far greater than personal achievement. It had become a company helping thousands of entrepreneurs manage their businesses with confidence and simplicity. The laughter that once questioned the dream no longer had any weight in her mind. What remained was the quiet satisfaction of knowing that belief, patience, and relentless work had transformed an idea into a billion-dollar company that now stood as part of the modern financial landscape. One quiet afternoon several weeks after the announcement of the company's new valuation, Olivia Bennet stood inside the executive conference room reviewing a set of reports that summarized the platform's nationwide expansion. The screens displayed maps of the United States marked with thousands of small indicators representing businesses now using the system for daily transactions. Restaurants, suppliers, small manufacturing shops, and service companies across cities and towns relied on the platform to move payments quickly and transparently. Each dot on the map represented someone who had chosen to trust a system that began years earlier as a simple concept written in a notebook at a small dining table. The realization filled Olivia with a deep sense of responsibility rather than pride alone. She knew that every improvement the team made would affect real people managing real businesses. Later that evening, the company hosted a small celebration for employees in the main workspace. Soft music played in the background while people gathered around tables sharing stories about the early days of the company. Some employees had joined when the office contained only a few desks and folding chairs, while others had arrived recently after hearing about the company's rapid growth in technology news. As the conversations continued, one of the engineers asked Olivia what she remembered most clearly about the beginning of the journey. She smiled for a moment before answering honestly. What she remembered most was not the first investment meeting, or the moment investors recognized the company's value. What she remembered most clearly were the long nights of uncertainty when success still seemed distant, and the only thing guiding her forward was belief in the idea itself. Those nights had shaped everything that followed. A few days later, Olivia attended another industry gathering, this time as one of the keynote speakers invited to discuss innovation in financial technology. After her presentation, as people slowly exited the conference hall, a man approached her near the back of the room. At first, she did not immediately recognize him because several years had passed and life had changed in ways neither of them could have predicted. But when he spoke her name, she realized it was Ryan Walker. His voice carried a mixture of surprise and respect, as he mentioned how widely known the company had become. Ryan admitted that he had read about the platform in several financial publications, and had followed its rapid growth with interest. The conversation remained calm and respectful. Olivia listened politely as he spoke about his own career, and how different things had turned out for both of them. There was no tension in the moment, only the quiet awareness of how much time had passed since the evening when they had once shared a dinner table discussing dreams that sounded unrealistic to him at the time. Olivia simply thanked him for the conversation and wished him well before leaving the conference center. As she stepped outside into the cool evening air, the city lights stretched across the skyline in the same steady rhythm they had followed for years. She walked toward the waiting car that would take her back to the company headquarters where her team continued building the next generation of the platform. In that moment, she felt a quiet sense of completion. The laughter that once dismissed her dream had long since lost its importance. What remained was the company she had built, the thousands of businesses it supported every day, and the knowledge that determination had quietly turned one woman's idea into a billion-dollar reality. The following weeks carried a calm rhythm inside the headquarters of Olivia Bennet's company, as the team continued building improvements that would shape the next phase of growth. The platform that once focused on helping small businesses move payments faster was now evolving into a broader financial ecosystem. Engineers worked on tools that allowed business owners to track revenue trends, manage supplier payments, and forecast cash flow using simple dashboards that replaced complicated spreadsheets. Every update reflected the same principle Olivia had believed in from the beginning, that technology should simplify the daily challenges entrepreneurs face, rather than add layers of confusion. One morning, Olivia arrived at the office earlier than usual, and walked slowly through the quiet workspace before most employees had arrived. The soft lights above the rows of desks illuminated whiteboards filled with ideas for upcoming features and expansion plans. She paused near the large display screen in the operations area, where live transaction data streamed across the interface. Thousands of payments moved through the network each minute, connecting businesses from different cities in a system that now operated continuously across the country. Watching the numbers update in real time reminded her how far the company had traveled from those early days, when a single successful test transaction felt like a major milestone. Later that day, Olivia joined a strategy meeting with the leadership team to discuss international expansion. Market research suggested that the same challenges faced by American small businesses existed in many other parts of the world. Outdated payment infrastructure, delayed transfers, and unnecessary transaction fees slowed down countless entrepreneurs trying to grow their companies. The possibility of bringing the platform to new markets filled the room with thoughtful discussion, as analysts reviewed regulations, technology requirements, and potential partnerships abroad. Olivia listened carefully to every perspective before outlining a plan that emphasized patience and long-term reliability, rather than rushing into unfamiliar markets. Her leadership style remained consistent with the mindset that had guided her from the beginning: build carefully, improve constantly, and earn trust step by step. In the weeks that followed, the company began forming partnerships with financial institutions that could support the infrastructure required for global transactions. News about these developments spread quickly through technology media and business publications. Articles described the company as one of the most influential financial technology innovators emerging from Chicago in recent years. Yet despite the growing attention, Olivia continued focusing on the same fundamental mission that started everything: helping entrepreneurs manage their businesses with confidence and efficiency. One evening she stayed late in the office reviewing plans for the next generation of the platform. The city outside the windows glowed with the familiar pattern of lights stretching across downtown streets and bridges. She thought about the path that had led to this moment and realized something that had become increasingly clear with time. The success of the company was not only about financial growth or investor recognition. It was about proving that determination could transform a dismissed dream into a system that improved the daily lives of thousands of people running businesses across the country. Olivia closed the final report for the evening and looked across the quiet office where her team would return the next morning to continue building the future. The journey that began with a single idea had grown into a movement that was still unfolding, and she knew that the most meaningful chapters of that story were still waiting to be written. Months passed as Olivia Bennett and her team carefully expanded the platform beyond the borders of the United States. What had once begun as a payment solution for small businesses in Chicago was now preparing to serve entrepreneurs in several international markets. The process required patience and precision because every country carried its own financial regulations, banking partnerships, and technological requirements. Olivia insisted that every step be handled with the same attention to reliability that had built the company's reputation from the beginning. Inside the headquarters, the international expansion team worked closely with engineers and legal advisors, reviewing frameworks that would allow the platform to connect seamlessly with financial institutions abroad. The goal remained simple and clear: to provide small businesses everywhere with the same fast and transparent payment tools that had helped thousands of companies grow across the United States. One morning, Olivia stood in the main operations center, watching the transaction dashboard update in real time. Streams of data flowed across the large displays as businesses processed payments through the system. Restaurants paid suppliers, construction companies paid subcontractors, and retailers settled accounts with distributors. Each transaction represented trust placed in the platform that she had once built alone on a laptop. The scale of the network had grown so large that it now operated every second of the day across multiple time zones. Later that week, the company announced its first international partnership with a financial institution that would support the platform's expansion into Canada. News about the partnership spread quickly across technology media and financial publications. Analysts described the company as one of the most promising financial technology innovators of the decade, highlighting how its focus on simplicity had allowed small businesses to access tools previously available only to large corporations. Employees gathered in the main office as the announcement appeared across several business news websites displayed on the screens. Applause filled the room as team members recognized that the idea they had helped build was now reaching entrepreneurs far beyond the city where it had begun. Olivia thanked the team for their dedication, but reminded them that growth always brought greater responsibility. Every new market meant more businesses depending on the platform to manage their financial operations smoothly. That responsibility motivated the entire organization to continue improving security, reliability, and customer support with each update they released. One evening, after the office had grown quiet again, Olivia walked through the hallways reflecting on the path that had led from a small apartment dining table to an international technology company. The memory of the early days remained vivid in her mind. She remembered studying payment systems late into the night, refining ideas while the city slept outside her window, and believing in a vision that few people around her fully understood at the time. Now that vision had grown into a company valued at billions of dollars, and supported by a team of talented professionals working toward the same mission. As Olivia stepped outside the building, the Chicago skyline stretched across the horizon with thousands of lights illuminating the evening sky. She paused for a moment and looked across the city where everything had started. The dream that once sounded unrealistic had become a reality through patience, resilience, and relentless effort. Yet she knew that the story was not defined by a single moment of success. The true meaning of the journey was the impact the company continued to create for entrepreneurs who needed better tools to run their businesses. With that thought in mind, Olivia walked toward the car waiting to take her home, ready for the next chapter of growth that was already beginning to unfold. The months following the company's international expansion brought a new rhythm to Olivia Bennett's life. Each week introduced opportunities that once felt unimaginable, when the entire project had existed only inside her small apartment. The platform now supported businesses not only across the United States, but also in several international markets where entrepreneurs faced the same challenges that had inspired Olivia's original idea. Payments that once required multiple intermediaries now traveled across the system in seconds, allowing business owners to focus their attention on growth rather than financial complications. Inside the headquarters, the teams responsible for global operations worked carefully to ensure that every region received the same level of reliability and transparency that had built the company's reputation. Engineers monitored performance across time zones, while support specialists communicated with businesses from different countries who had recently adopted the platform. The office environment reflected a quiet sense of pride combined with the awareness that success always required continuous improvement. Olivia continued to guide the company with the same calm determination that had defined her leadership since the beginning. One afternoon she attended a strategy meeting where analysts presented projections showing how quickly the network was expanding. The charts revealed something remarkable. Thousands of new businesses were joining the platform each month, creating a financial ecosystem that connected entrepreneurs from cities and small towns across multiple continents. The system had grown far beyond its original purpose, and was now becoming a central infrastructure that supported the daily operations of countless companies. Later that evening, Olivia stepped away from the office and walked along the Chicago River as the sun slowly lowered behind the skyline. The glass towers reflected warm orange light across the water, while people filled the riverwalk enjoying the calm evening atmosphere. Moments like this allowed her to reflect on the path that had shaped her life. She thought about the early days when belief in her dream required patience and resilience. At that time there were no large teams, no international partnerships, and no headlines describing the company's success. There had only been determination, and a willingness to continue working even when the outcome remained uncertain. Those experiences had quietly built the foundation for everything that followed. A few days later, Olivia received an invitation to speak at a national entrepreneurship forum, held in Washington, where leaders from across the business world gathered to discuss innovation and opportunity. When she stood on the stage addressing the audience, she spoke not only about technology but about the power of persistence. She explained how ideas that appear unrealistic at first can eventually reshape entire industries when they are supported by patience, learning, and continuous effort. The audience listened attentively as she described the long journey from a single idea to a global financial platform used by thousands of businesses every day. As the event concluded, many young entrepreneurs approached her to express appreciation for the story she shared. Olivia realized that the impact of the company now extended beyond financial technology. It had become a symbol of what determination could achieve when someone refused to abandon a dream simply because others could not yet see its potential. When she returned to Chicago that evening, the familiar skyline greeted her once again, reminding her that every extraordinary journey begins with a quiet decision to believe in an idea, and the courage to keep building it one step at a time. Several weeks after returning from the Entrepreneurship Forum in Washington, Olivia Bennett stood once again near the large windows of the company headquarters overlooking downtown Chicago. The morning sun reflected across the glass buildings surrounding the office, and the city below moved with its familiar rhythm as people hurried along sidewalks and traffic filled the streets. Inside the headquarters, the atmosphere remained focused and energetic, as teams continued refining the platform that had now become an essential financial tool for businesses across multiple countries. The large displays in the operations center showed a steady stream of activity as payments flowed through the network every second. What once began as an idea sketched on paper had grown into an international system, connecting thousands of entrepreneurs who depended on its speed and reliability to manage their daily operations. Olivia walked through the workspace greeting employees who were reviewing analytics, testing updates, and preparing the next version of the platform that would introduce even more advanced financial tools. Each person in the company had become part of a story that started long before many of them joined the team. Yet the spirit that guided the company remained the same as it had been from the beginning: to simplify financial systems so that business owners could focus on building their dreams instead of navigating complicated payment processes. Later that afternoon, Olivia met with several new founders visiting the office as part of an innovation program designed to support emerging entrepreneurs. They asked questions about leadership, resilience, and the long path from an early idea to a successful company. Olivia listened carefully before sharing a simple truth she had learned through experience. She explained that the most important moments in any journey often happen long before success becomes visible to the world. They happen during quiet nights of work, during times when belief must replace recognition, and during the countless decisions to continue moving forward, even when the path is uncertain. The founders nodded as they listened, understanding that the lessons behind the company's growth extended far beyond technology. That evening, after the office slowly emptied, Olivia remained at her desk reviewing a final report summarizing the company's global activity. The numbers reflected extraordinary growth, yet what captured her attention most was the number of businesses now relying on the platform every day. Each of those businesses represented someone with ambitions not so different from the dream she once defended years earlier. When she finally closed the report and turned off the lights in her office, she walked through the quiet hallway toward the exit where the company logo was displayed on the glass wall. For a moment she paused there, remembering the night when her idea had been met with laughter and disbelief. That memory no longer carried any bitterness. Instead, it served as a reminder that every great achievement begins with a vision that others may not yet understand. As Olivia stepped outside into the cool Chicago evening, the skyline stretched before her in a sea of lights reflecting across the river. The journey that started with a single idea had transformed into a billion-dollar company, influencing the future of financial technology. Yet the most powerful part of the story was not the wealth or recognition that followed. It was the quiet proof that perseverance, patience, and unwavering belief in a dream could turn the most unlikely vision into a lasting reality. The following months unfolded with a steady sense of purpose inside the headquarters where Olivia Bennett and her team continued shaping the future of their growing financial platform. The company had reached a level of success that many technology founders spent entire careers trying to achieve, yet Olivia approached each new day with the same discipline that had guided her during the earliest stages of the journey. Every morning she walked through the office greeting employees who were already focused on improving the systems that powered thousands of businesses across multiple countries. Large screens displayed live transaction flows, and the quiet hum of workstations filled the open space as engineers refined security layers, analysts reviewed global financial patterns, and product teams designed tools that would help entrepreneurs manage their businesses more efficiently. What had once been a small team working around a single idea had evolved into a professional organization, united by a shared mission. One afternoon, Olivia joined a meeting with regional partners who had recently adopted the platform in several new markets. The discussion focused on how the technology was helping small companies simplify their financial operations. Restaurant owners were able to pay suppliers instantly, construction firms managed subcontractor payments with greater transparency, and independent retailers tracked their revenue through clear dashboards that replaced complicated accounting systems. Hearing those stories reminded Olivia why she had started the company in the first place. The goal had never been fame or recognition. The goal had been to create a solution that genuinely improved the daily experience of running a business. Later that week, Olivia visited a small entrepreneurship workshop hosted by a local community organization in Chicago. The event brought together aspiring founders who were exploring ideas for their own startups. Many of them were in the early stages where uncertainty often felt overwhelming. When Olivia stood before the group, she shared a perspective shaped by years of perseverance. She explained that success rarely begins with confidence from others. It often begins with a single person choosing to believe in an idea long before the world understands its value. The room grew quiet as the participants listened closely to her words. Several of them asked questions about how she handled doubt during the early days of building the company. Olivia answered honestly that doubt had always existed, but determination had always been stronger. Every step forward, no matter how small, eventually created momentum that others could finally see. After the workshop ended, Olivia stepped outside into the crisp evening air and looked across the familiar skyline of Chicago. The city that once watched her work quietly from a small apartment had now become the home of a global company, influencing financial technology around the world. The journey had been long and filled with challenges, yet every stage had taught her something valuable about patience, resilience, and belief in a vision. As she returned to the headquarters later that evening, the lights from the office windows reflected across the street, while teams continued working on updates that would shape the next phase of the platform's growth. Olivia paused for a moment near the entrance where the company logo shone against the glass wall. She understood that the story had never been about proving someone wrong. It had always been about proving that a dream, when supported by persistence and hard work, could quietly transform into something powerful enough to change countless lives.